I spoke at the Aspen Ideas Festival this year, and Sam Altman was there, the founder of OpenAI, and I heard him speak, and he was just rapturous about how all of the things that are going to be solved from AI, and all of the good that it's going to do. And I kind of rewound to when Facebook came out, and remember we're like, oh, it's so cute. You can like find your friends from high school, and you can see your niece's baby, and she lives across the way. It's like connecting us, and it's free.
Right.
I'm like, some guy offers us something free that seems awesome. Can we collectively just not reach for it? Just take a moment. And we had no way of knowing at that point. So I'm like, okay, well, what were the things that went into the fact that we had this thing that seemed really good when it was offered to us first? What factors were involved in having it be so corrosive? And can we have a caution around AI about those same things, meaning abject greed, the need to know who we're better than, the having to feed the beast of shareholder profits continually at the expense of most of the population. These are things that are operative. So, because here's the thing, greed, shareholder profits, feeding the beast, our need to feel righteous, none of those are going to be solved by AI. But relying on AI, which is created by people who have these problems, we should have some caution around that.
Yeah, Altman and his ilk certainly have these sort of grand messianic visions, don't they?
They do.
And it seems to me, I mean, one of the things that I find frustrating sometimes is the way in which it's presumed in a lot of Western civilization that traditions of theology just don't have anything to teach us.
Oh,
and it's like,
yes,
if the Altmans of the world had a little bit of knowledge of a rigorous doctrine, say of sin,
correct,
then all of a sudden you would have a little more humility, I think, about how all of this could go wrong.
I've written several essays in the last year about exactly that. Precisely that. I was in a day-long meeting at the Library of Congress 2 weeks ago talking about that exact thing. Is that because I'm watching Altman and this other guy be rapturous, and then I went to this AI thing later, and he was saying there are about 10 men who have really most of the power and control that are holding the levers around AI right now and around tech across the world. And he goes, but they have advisors. And I was like, my hand shut up. And I'm like, look, I listened to this guy talk, very smart, maybe kind of thinks like a computer, and that's why he's so successful, but probably not the highest level of what we call emotional intelligence. And so what it feels to me, if we're going to use Star Trek as, which we should, is it feels like they're Vulcans. And they're collectively creating data, the AI. And I'm like, who's Counselor Troy?
Yeah.
Who has the emotional intelligence and the spiritual intelligence and what we usually have called wisdom? Is there somebody at the table offering that kind of intelligence to the whole? Because there really should be. Because there was... Oh, God, I could talk for an hour about this. I read maybe 5 years ago in Wired magazine, I read a piece with this guy, Judea Pearl, and I think he might have died since then, but guy in his 80s, but he's considered the sort of grandfather of AI. He was one of the first thinkers that was even going there. And at the end of the interview, it was almost like a throwaway thing. The interviewer said, when will we know that AI is capable of evil? And Judea Pearl said, when it favors one kind of information over another kind of information. In other words, cognitive bias. And I freaked out because about 6 months later, I heard a lecture from a theologian, Simeon Zoll in Cambridge, who defined sin as cognitive bias in a sense, because he's lecturing to at a secular university, trying to teach the history of Christian thought, and his students who aren't Christian, aren't familiar with this, struggle with the doctrine of sin because it feels like you're being judgy, and that really is their only sin. That's the only thing they believe is a sin, right? Just being judgy. And he was saying what theologians have always called sin is hiding in plain sight as what Simeon Zoll calls cognitive bias. And so I'm like, there are people who have studied what it means to be human, and that is what we're studying right now when it comes to AI. Every single science fiction film about the robots taking over, or the robots look like us and are they human or not, there's so many of these. The basic question is, what does it mean to be human? And if we only have certain types of people answering that question, and they're answering it in a lofty way, we have some problems.
Right.
Because we have always had a way of talking about that in a way that's slightly less lofty, and I would say actually more accurate.